Poverty leads to waste of talent. And this is exactly what education is about, to cultivate talent, to cultivate potential. The Millennium Development Goals, 2 of them concern education, but in fact, even though only 2 of them specifically mention education, all of them are, or education is necessary in order to achieve all of the Millennium Development Goals. Education is the basis. And I would like to read to you the statement from the Oslo Declaration. Education is a fundamental human right to be respected at all times. It is one of the most effective tools for achieving inclusive and sustainable economic growth and recovery, reducing poverty, hunger and child labor, improving health, incomes and livelihoods, promoting peace, democracy and environmental awareness. Education empowers individuals with the knowledge, values and skills they need to make choices and shape their future. This is a big statement. Maybe we don't all believe in this, but I do. Across sub-Saharan Africa, there is an awareness that the last decade has witnessed unprecedented progress in the development of education. Education is in general very important in Africa. And when I travel in Africa, most African leaders will beg me, please, can you help us with education? Never in African history has so much been achieved in education over such a short period. That is, if we look at the statistics of the Millennium Development Goals. But, and there's a big but, and I would like to look at some of that. If we look at enrollment in primary education, you can see how the graph here climbs very quickly from 2002 to 2010. And we see a great increase in enrollment in primary education. But there's still a 25% gap here up to the 100%. Looking at female enrollment, also 95 compared to 100, pretty good, and big growth. But despite all of these great achievements, we will not reach the education for all goals by 2015 in Africa. And I think everybody is aware of that. So what are some of the challenges we have? Well, this is an interesting, what do you call it, poster. For every 10 children who start school, 4 in Africa will drop out. Okay. Another challenge we have when it comes to secondary education, only 39–40% of children are enrolled in secondary education, even now. Teacher shortage, a big threat to education in Africa. There will be a need for around 1 million new teachers in Africa. And where are we going to get them from? In order for all of the children to have access to quality primary education. Looking at the global literacy rates, if you see the pictures here, the bright red is the below 35%. Where do we have the bright red spots? Mainly in Africa. And then you have some yellow between 35 and 50%. This is also important and grave statistics showing some of the challenges we have in education. Because literate parents are much better able to support their children in education than illiterate parents. Literacy for women is especially a challenge. This great potential of women that we have in Africa, but so many of them are illiterate. We have other challenges in Africa when it comes to education. Dryland zones, pastoralists, people that move around in nomadic lives. We have to develop methods of reaching these children with a sustained educational program. Areas of conflict and war, same issue, displaced persons. We have hundreds and thousands of these in most countries in Africa, or many countries in Africa. Now I would like to move to South Sudan, just as a case study here, because South Sudan is a new country emerging from decades of war, 50% of the population below the poverty line, very high maternal death and under 5 mortality death, insecurity, conflicts, displaced persons. All of these problems that also have an impact on education and vice versa. Looking at the education indicators here, we find that South Sudan is has the second lowest primary school enrollment out of 123 countries. And it is at the very bottom when it comes to secondary enrollment. 1.3 million children of school age out of school. This is a daunting challenge we have. High dropout rates, high grade repetition. Starting school late means also higher dropout. And fairly low rate for attendance of girls in many places. Female teachers, very low rate of female teachers, and hardly any qualified ones. And the student-teacher ratio, one of the highest in Africa and probably in the world. In Jonglai, 104 to 1 teacher. But maybe the biggest challenge is the lack of qualified teachers. 1/3 of the teachers only have a primary education. And these are the very, very newest statistics that just came out last week in the report. Shortage of books, classrooms. If you look there, permanent classrooms, only 3.7%. The rest are either semi-permanent or under trees in open air. Let me take you to one of the areas in South Sudan that I visited just a few months ago, Capoeira North and Budi counties in eastern Equatoria. And you can see the arrows there where we are on the map. Oops. Eastern Equatoria has some of these challenges we have mentioned: remoteness, poor roads, rains, insecurity, cattle wrestling mainly. Also the pastoralism, undereducated parents that do not really understand the importance of education. Girls working very hard, as you see on the pictures, if you can see them properly, carrying firewood, carrying food, working in the fields. Some of the strongest women I have seen in my life I met out there. But also boys, sitting around all day trying to sell a little bit of juice to drink, or just roaming around doing nothing. The lack of school building is flagrant. In Budi County, only 17 permanent classrooms, 102 semi-permanent. And Capoeira North, only 6 schools, and there's about 20 to 30,000 children there that would need to go to school. Long distance to school for many of these young people, and there's a great need for dormitories, especially for the girls, so that they can attend school. Lack of qualified teachers, as I mentioned already in the statistics. If we see in Capoeira North, only 4 female teachers. In Budi County, 24 female untrained teachers, no trained female teachers at all in that county. I got an interesting story there. I asked, why did the enrollment drop to half from 2011 till 2012? The explanation: World Food came too late with food for school feeding, and so either families were too poor to send their kids to school when they couldn't get food there, or there was a lack of interest on the part of the parents to send their children when there was no incentive. The Minister of Education in Eastern Equatoria, based in Torrid, was a very inspiring man. He had visited every single school in the home state. And he had a lot of good ideas on what to do about the education system. It gave me hope, because some of the things you saw kind of said, wow, what can we do about this? But seeing just this push towards education and the emphasis on education. Education is clearly the key to South Sudan's future. It is vital to poverty reduction, to peace, resilience. And we need to do something about this. But we need a holistic education, not just book learning. We need access, but we need the quality and inclusiveness, including women, including people that have other challenges or that have challenges. We need education that is adapted to local context. Education that actually can give access to jobs, vocational training, secondary education, university studies. All of this is clearly lacking at this point in time. South Sudan needs to have access to the global market, and without education and the relevant education, this is impossible. I see our representative from South Sudan nodding here. The big potential of women is an underutilized potential. We need to develop that as well. Invest in girls for a better nation is the slogan here, and I couldn't agree more. And these girls, they were very encouraging. They were singing about girls' rights to go to school, rights, equal participation in decision making. Education also touches on health issues. Through education, we can teach about water, sanitation, hygiene. Through schools, we can have deworming programs, vaccines, bed nets, all of these issues that are so important for development. Food supplements, iron, iodine, vitamins, and so on. There are many, many possibilities if we create the right kind of education programs and if we make use of our schools so that they can serve the children and the adult population, that they can motivate the parents, give the parents literacy so that they can also support their children in schools. Past generations, and this is Gordon Brown, the UN Special Envoy for Global Education, that says this. Past generations have developed only some of the potential of some of the children. We can be the first generation to realize all of the potential of all of the world's young people through education. I'm not sure I agree completely with him that we can do this in our century, but we can at least strive towards it. So let us work together. Every year of school attendance raises the wages later in life of between 4 to 8%. Some research and statistics say. So education is important for, what was it we said here? Structural change. Education is important to eliminate poverty. Education is important to develop people. Thank you.